I'm Mitch McCracken, and this is Memphis Music Interview, Memphis music history told from the inside. Today's guest is an incredible musician who was with the American Studio session band known as the 827 Thomas Street Band, who in 1 week had 25% of Billboard's Top 100. Those songs not only came from the same studio, but featured the same band backing a variety of artists. Between 1967 and 1971, the Memphis Boys recorded 122 top 10 records using the same team, something that was never achieved before or since. I'm honored to have with me today from the 827 Thomas Street Band, later known as the Memphis Boys, Mr. Bobby Wood. How you doing today, Bobby?
I'm doing good.
So what's it like working with Garth Brooks?
Oh, well, it's been a blessing, I can tell you, man. It's just, I ain't that good.
Is he as friendly as he seems?
Yeah, he's been like a brother to me. I mean, it's just like I've kind of latched on to just a real fantastic brother, you know, that and he's been that way to all of the band that started with him. We started with him in 89, I guess it was, and from the first day, and been with him ever since. I think he's done a few projects, you know, a few songs, you know, with bluegrass groups and different stuff, you know, whatever the song called for. But for the most part, we've been on 99% of everything, you know, so.
Do you go out on the road with him?
No, I don't. I'm too old for one thing, man. I can barely get to the studio. They may think the insurance may be a little too high for me. I told him I'd go out with him, but we'd have to have walkers and ambulances and everything else stand by.
So, how did your road to success get started?
Yeah, it started with my grandpa. He took music through the mail back in early 1900s, I guess. And so him and my dad traveled, you know, from church to church, and they would go to a church and spend the week with the kids. And their payment a lot of times was fruit and vegetables out of people's gardens. And then Saturday night, the moms and dads would come in and hear what their kids were singing, you know. So that's what they did.
Okay, that was your father or grandfather?
It was my grandfather. My dad, he kind of followed suit. My grandfather had 10 kids, and it wasn't no ifs, ands, or maybe. You either had to play something or sing, one of the two. And then my dad followed suit, and he had 6 kids.
And you had your own hit early in your career, didn't you?
Yeah, I had a hit record back in '64. You know, I say hit. It wasn't a hit everywhere. It was on a small label, but still it sold like 250,000 records. I was out touring with J. Frank Wilson. He had out Last Kiss, the original version of that, and Gene Simmons had out Haunted House, and Murray Kellum had out Long Tall Texan, and Travis Womack had a record instrumental called Scratchy. So we took a band, and I think they hired a band from, I want to say up in Michigan or someplace, and they met us at a certain point, and we was going down the road 500 miles a day for 4 or 5 days, I guess, and got into about the 5th concert, and we decided to leave Wheeling, West Virginia, I think it was, and go back to Lima, Ohio, which was a big stretch that night, so we could get some rest. And it's one of those things where, you know, we all took turns driving, and Murray Kellum's car, they were behind us with him and Gene Simmons and Travis, I think it was, and then me and Jay Frank was in the car in front. It was Ray Brown's station wagon. Ray was the booking agent, so he booked us a tour, and we're in 5 days, and I pulled over and said I've driven as long as I can, about 1 o'clock in the morning or 2, and And then Jay Frank's manager was with us, and he took over, and we got within about 18, 20 miles out of Lima, and Jay Frank's manager went to sleep, and we hit a semi head-on. And I stuck in the windshield, lost my right eye, and whole right side of my face couldn't put your finger where there weren't stitches, you know. So they thought, you know, I wasn't going to be around, but I guess the good Lord had different plans. So I was home. I was back in Memphis within 2 weeks, and so things didn't work out real well with having another hit. And by this time, this one was going off the charts, and so I had an opportunity to go into. We were already working at Phillips Studio, me and Gene Chrisman, and then Reggie and Bobby and Tommy Cogbill and some of the other guys was working down at High in different places. So people from Nashville would come in, the publishers, and they would hire like the 5 of us or 6 of us and put us together. So Chips Moman came through, and I want to say around 65, 66, somewhere like that, and opened up 827 Thomas Street over Thomas and Chelsea in American Studio. And we all ended up over there, and we didn't know till 1972 when we moved to what we'd done. You know, we didn't realize we'd show up at studio at noon and get home at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And I didn't even realize till after we moved here that we'd cut 122 chart records in 4 different charts, including jazz. And we didn't even realize that we were just going to work. So that's how that happened.
You were slow moving over to work with Chips. Why was that?
Yeah, that was my, the 4 or 5 of the guys had already gone over there, and because I was an artist and loyal to my producer over at Phillips Studio, Sam Phillips Studio, you know, just having a big ballad out in those days, and when twist music and all that was coming through, I mean, if you didn't have any major up-tempo records out, I mean, it was really hard to get decent bookings, you know, and so I'd kind of dwindled down to the time I'd pay a band and motel expense and gas expense and everything. I might come home with $100 clear in my pocket, you know, but, you know, at Chips, I'd met Chips over at Phillips, and they had the only lathe in town that you brought your masters over and cut the master for the pressing plant. And so it was Cropper and a lot of different people in town, Ray Harris, and then I met Chips over there at the same time too, and so we just kind of developed a relationship. And it wasn't long after Chips opened up his studio. None of the guys were there yet. He would have me to come over and play with some of his R&B records. You know, he cut a big record on Barbara and the Browns called Big Party, and he'd call me over there to help him do projects over there. So anyway, we had a friendship, you know, before he opened up American. So that was good. We used to. He had bought a little Honda Hawk motorcycle, and I had a Sears and Roebuck motorcycle. It was a used piece of junk, you know, and we'd ride the streets of Memphis, you know, after hours at night, you know, just go out riding around, you know. So that's.
Now that wasn't one of the scooters with the gas and brake pedals, was it?
No, it was a motorcycle. I think it was like a, you know, would be like a little 125 or 150 or something like that. It wasn't a big one. And you remember the first Honda Hawk? That's about what it was too. It was about a 150 or something. But anyway, we just developed a friendship, and he actually played on my album in '64. He played on the Bobby Wood album, and we cut one of his songs. This time, I think Troy Shondell had that out, and I actually put that on my album. But no, we had a long-standing friendship, and of course, you know, he worked some in the clubs with me too around Memphis. So we had a standing engagement out at Starlight Club on the north side of town for a long time, for a couple of years.
Were you starstruck meeting Elvis during the infamous comeback sessions at American?
I had met Elvis way before those sessions, back when, you know, he was, I guess it was in probably around 60, 61. I know I was dating my bride-to-be at that point, and of course I knew George Klein really well through, I'd had some small records out before the big one, and I'd be on George's television show, and we got to be buddies, and he invited us out to the amusement park one night, and of course Elvis would go and rent it after midnight and keep all the people there, and we'd just go out and ride the rides for 3 or 4 hours, and I got to talk to him briefly then, but even before that, when he was at Sun Records, we were gospel singers, and we had gone to Memphis at some point when I was about, I want to say 10, 11 years old, maybe 12, and our family and this lady that we knew in Memphis, they would have a big singing convention at the Ellis Auditorium. And so she told my dad, she said, your family is really, really good, man. She says, I know this guy's got a studio, and said, would you like to go over and put down a few songs on tape? And my dad said, well, sure. And it ended up being Sam Phillips' Sun Records. Yeah, we went over there and put down 2 or 3 songs, and of course I had we had been singing at a radio station in Tupelo, my family, and this girl had gone to the, I guess it was a 55 concert in Tupelo or 54, somewhere in there, and she had showed me his picture. She had gotten a picture of him, and when I was really young, and she said, this guy's really going to be big, man. Said he is great. He put on a great show in Tupelo, and so when we were in Memphis back at the studio, Sam had recorded us, on tape, and so we got through, and I went back out front, and this guy was sitting behind the desk, but I didn't really recognize him. He kind of a dirty blonde hair, and kind of ruddy faced. I guess at that time he was still working at the electric company or wherever he was working, and he was all unshaven and everything. And so I saw his picture underneath the glass on the desk, and I told Sam, I said, hey, I heard about this guy. I said a friend of mine said that this guy was going to be a star, And Sam said, well, meet Elvis Presley, and I got all embarrassed, man. It was like... And he complimented us on our singing and stuff, and he says, he said, you guys are really good, and I said, it was nice meeting you. And I couldn't have been over 12, I don't guess, at that point. But that was my first meeting with Elvis. And then after the fairgrounds, and then we were, somebody said we had already cut at the time that Elvis came there. I believe they said 72 chart records by that time. And so I guess they'd heard Hooked on a Feeling and Box Tops records and Neil Diamond, I guess, by that time, Sweet Caroline. In fact, I think we were supposed to, Neil Diamond was going to be back in on the Monday that they started recording Elvis, because they called from Graceland on maybe Saturday night, and I wanted to know if they could get in Monday, and Chips actually said, yeah, I guess I can postpone the Neil Diamond and do that later. Said, y'all come in next week. It was January sometime, I forget when it was. Mark James by this time was writing for us, and he had written Suspicious Minds. He had written Hooked on a Feeling, and I'm not sure if they had written Always on My Mind by that time or not. But anyway, Chips had a bunch of songs. He had an Eddie Rabbit Kentucky Rain song under his belt, and so he had some good songs before Elvis even come in, and then when the publishing people hit and immediately wanted publishing on Suspicious Minds, and Chips just said no. And the guy, I forget who he was. I think he was from New York or L.A. one, and he did the smart aleck thing and says, "Well, I'll just have to go out and tell Elvis that he's not getting published on this stuff." And he said, "If he walks out, so be it." And Chip said, "Fine, that's fine with me." He said, "I'll cut this on B.J. Thomas tomorrow and be just big of a hit, because B.J. was really hot. B.J. was hotter than Elvis at that point." I didn't realize, but somebody had said that Elvis had been out of charts 7 or 8 years by that time. Anyway, anyway, when he came to the studio that night, I was nervous. I was about to jump out of my skin. I said, "Oh my God, we're getting ready to work with the king," So I knew I could feel his presence in the back parking lot. When they was in the back parking lot, I could feel it, and that's how much charisma the guy had. And then when him and his entourage walked in the back door, I mean, he was bigger than life, man. Everybody just choked and took a step backwards. It's like, whoa. But anyway, he walked on into the control room and met Chips, and of course Felton was in there and some other people, and then he came right back out in the studio and shook hands with all of us. I mean, just like just really friendly guy, just really friendly. And after we got all the riffraff out of the way and got down to business with just, a few of his guys and us and our group, we went to work, and boy, Elvis just got right into what we were doing. I mean, we didn't really want to cut a bad song on Elvis, we were there to cut hits on anybody that walked in. It didn't matter if it's him or somebody else, But anyway, he fell into our little production and groove thing, and he had a ball. I guess it was Marty Lacker said that the first or second night, he was in the back of the limousine, and he hit Marty on the shoulder and said, "I think we got something good here, Marty." And Marty said, "I think you're right, man." And so I don't really think we had cut one of the big records the first night, but anyway, 2 or 3 nights later, I guess we got into Suspicious Minds and then the Getto and that stuff.
How many songs did you cut with Elvis?
We did. Somebody said 32 within 2 weeks. I think it was. He came in for a week one time, and he was supposed to come in again and had lost his voice. And similarly, like we did "Don't Cry Daddy" or "Kentucky Rain" without him. He wasn't there, and I had to do the vocals on the song. And picking the key was funny too, because was getting ready to cut the song, and somebody said, "What key?" And it just dawned on me. I said, "Play some of the stuff we've already done," and they did. And I figured out where his range was, and his range was either a step above mine or a step below it. I think it was a step above mine, so I had to actually lower the key a whole step and then sing it, And that's in the archives at RCA somewhere, I guess, up New York. But anyway, we just did whatever we had to do at the point. When Elvis came in and put his vocals on the track that we had already basically finished, he said, "Boy, this key's perfect." And Chip said, he looked at me and said, "Look, that guy right there was the one who picked your key for you." He said, "Well, you got it right." But we developed a, kind of a brotherhood together, and he loved to pull jokes on people, some of his own people, and I was kind of a jokester myself too, and we just hit it off right off the bat, and got to kidding around with each other. I had most of the times he wouldn't come in till a lot of times he wouldn't come in till midnight, and by this time I'd be rubbing my eye. It would be getting late, so I would take my eye out and put my eye patch on, and so he didn't even know that I had a car wreck. He'd asked George Klein why was I wearing the eye patch, and George told him. But anyway, it got to the place that we'd be sitting around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning in the control room, and he'd look up at me and he said, "Hey, Wiley, you got the plane warmed up?" And I said, "What, Wiley?" He said, "Yeah, Will Rogers' pilot, Wiley Post, had one eye, and he wore a patch on one of his eyes." He started calling me Wiley after that. "Hey, Wiley, you got the plane warmed up?" I said, "It's warmed up. Just take off, man." And I got 20 vision, all those things. Yeah, we were on the road with the highway when we were trying to think of all the I songs. "I Only Have I for You" and Blue Eye Crying in the Rain. I've had a lot of fun with that.
Were they calling you the Memphis Boys back then?
No, that didn't happen until we moved here.
Was it just you and Reggie Young that moved to Nashville?
No, it was all of us. We all moved over. Well, me and Toney and Mike moved over here. No. Me, Tommy, and Johnny Christopher. moved over here, and of course Johnny was a regular writer at the studio, and of course he played acoustic guitar down there too, and later on in the 70, 71, in those years. Great acoustic guitar player. But anyway, we came on over here in after the first of the year in 1972, because me and my family moved in March of 72. And Chips took the rest of the band to Atlanta. So he just closed up shop, and of course our R&B thing had already pretty much dried up, and I think that was probably because of the Martin Luther King's death, And so that was basically gone. And so, I told Johnny and Tommy too, I said, it's almost like starting over here. So I said I could start him in Nashville. So we didn't know Tommy was in Nashville. Me and Johnny came over here one weekend, and the first person we ran into was Tommy. So he was going. So we all three moved in early 1972, and by July or August, I guess, of that year, the rest of them moved up here, including Chips. We kind of got separated at that point. We everybody was just playing sessions with whoever called first, and so we kind of got split up. But there was a few people, very few, that would use the whole band as a unit. I don't know what it was, if it was Nashville politics or what it was, but anyway, very few people. On Fred Foster would use most of us, and Buddy Killen and Chip Young, and there was a few people in town that used us as a unit. And almost every time we all got together, we cut another big pop record. I Can Help was cut with all of us, and Hey, Won't You Play was cut with all of us. Of course, Chips wouldn't use anybody but us, But anyway, we cut a bunch of pop records even after we moved here.
What was it like moving from pop to country sessions?
I fell in, I guess by accident, with George Jones in probably 74, somewhere in there. Pig Robbins was, Billy Sherrill's favorite piano player, and he's actually mine too. But something happened on George Jones. It was him and Tammy's last album together. It was a Golden Rings album, and so Pig was either double booked or sick or something. And Billy Sanford, one of the guitar players here in town, told Sherrill, he says, those Memphis Boys has moved to town. He said, keyboard players are pretty good, and Sherrill said, well, call him. And so I went over and played acoustic piano on, I believe it was Golden Rings and something else. I don't know what it was. So Sherrill started using me on the Fender Rhodes piano, the electric piano, and because it had kind of taken over in place of the vibes. They used to use the vibes, vibraphones, before that, but when the Fender Rhodes came along, it kind of took the place of the vibes. And so I played for the next 14 years on all of George Jones's records, and with all of Billy Sherrill's artists, so that worked out real good. But how the Memphis Boys came around, that's exactly how that came about. Because the people here started calling us, get one of the Memphis Boys or two of the Memphis Boys or whatever. And so it just stuck. They was the one that was calling us Memphis Boys. And I said, well, that sounds pretty good, man. That's what we are, I guess.
I talked to Reggie, and he told me about playing the electric sitar. He is such a laid-back guy.
I guess he told you the story, but we were doing a lot of Atlantic work, and I guess Wexler and some of them from New York had sent us a bunch of instruments and stuff down there, and just for us to try out. And I think Dan Penn opened one of the boxes and said, what is it there? And Reggie said, I don't know. He said, tune it up and see what it sounds like. And it was one of those old choral sitars, And he said, well, let's use that on this record. I guess it was Cry Like a Baby. It was first record the electric sitar was on, period.
Well, let me ask you this. How did you hook up with Garth?
Oh, BJ, he was just one of the guys. Still is today. I just talked to him a couple of days ago. He calls every once in a while. He's like a brother. I guess Bob Doyle had found Garth somehow. I guess somebody had pitched some songs to him that Garth was doing, and he was trying to write and all kind of stuff. And I guess he took it over and played it for Alan. And so Alan liked him too. I mean, he said he thought he was good enough to start recording, And so I just happened by there one day. I saw Alan and Bob Doyle standing out front talking at the studio, and I just pulled in and just going to say hi. I'd stop every once in a while. It was right on my way to my office, and so Bob said, well, we were just talking about you, and I said, well, I'm sorry, man. He got tickled. I said, the conversation's come down to that, huh? And so he said, no, Alan made mention that you would probably be a great member of putting the band together to back up Garth. And I said, well, great, man. I'm always happy to help anybody get started, if I can. So sure enough, they booked some sessions later, and I think we did 4 sides. And I can't remember all of them now. It's been so long ago. And that was 1989. And so I guess they played the stuff to Capitol, or some different labels, and Capitol decided they wanted to come in and listen to him, and so they went and got most of us to do the showcase with him. We did it at one of the rental places out off of West End. And so after that night, I guess they signed him sometime along in that period, and so then it so happened that not long after that, till they had a show here, a TV show, and I forget, I don't know if it's Nashville Nights or what it was called, but it was over in the Cannery, and they had somebody that didn't show up for their TV show, and they called Bob Doyle, and he said, yeah, I got a new guy. And so they got most of the band together. I mean, there's only a couple of us that was not booked that night, So we just ran down on the last minute's notice, and we did, I think it was 2 songs on that TV show. And I remember before I left the place, some of the people that was running the show said, the phone lines are still ringing. So the phone lines lit up. Wow. Yeah, so that was the beginning right there. He's an innovator, man. I mean, he believes in pushing limits, But I know, Alan was a great producer and a great friend, and Alan had a great ear for a song. And I said, and Alan had told him, I guess, when they first started, he said, well, let's see if it works. And he said, at any point, if we get into it and you decided you want to do something else, he said, I'm okay with that. He said, you want to move on, that's fine. But that never happened. And I don't know how many times, of course, Alan, I guess, had told him about my background in Memphis, and as well as, in Nashville at that point, too. And he said, Bobby's got a wide range of music that he can pull from, and he said he's a great ear and a person to have around. And so Garson had said that he never visioned himself singing with a keyboard, and Bob came and told me one day, he said, I got to tell you something that Gar said about you the other day. And I said, what was that? And he said, he told me what he had said. He couldn't envision himself even singing with a keyboard in the band. He says, now I can't hear it any other way. He said, after Bobby came along, he said he brings it home, and I said, well, I'm glad I do something, But I said, oh, that's sweet, man. I said, he's very kind. I just feel like everything is, I'm placed in the places I'm supposed to be. It's been that way for years, and I don't give myself that much credit. I just say, well, thank you, God. I'm grateful. I'm just really grateful for everything.
Well, thank you, Bobby, for sitting down and talking to me. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you, man. Bye.
Next week, I'm going to be talking to Sid Herring of the Gants on Memphis Music Interview, Memphis Music History Told from the Inside. I'm Mitch McCracken, and I hope to see you then.